If you saw my review for the RG35XX Plus, then you already know exactly what the RG35XXSP can do, as they both have the exact same hardware and perform exactly the same. And I bought this myself, and I'm very late to give a review of this device, so I'm sure most people who have had their eye on this know exactly what they need to know. Personally, I was very curious about this one because I've always wanted to own a decent clamshell device, and there is a lot of buzz about this one in particular, especially since Miyoo seem to be taking their sweet time releasing theirs. And Miyoo have essentially been undercut and beaten to the mark on this one. Although I'd be very curious to see how much quality has gone into Miyoo's build, the RG35XXSP is simply quite gorgeous to look at, and after a couple of days playing around with it, I just want to keep opening the damn thing and enjoy it some more. It seems like this is the year of near perfect clones if the Odin 2 Mini can capture that Vita feeling. I want to jump straight into this one with some thoughts that I've been having, because it feels like one of those is so close handhelds where some things are preventing it being an absolute must-have. First of all, I wanted to talk about the Hinge. Now, I've never owned or held a GBA SP, so I don't actually know if this replicates what it did perfectly, but I was a little saddened there is only one fixed point the Hinge will snap to. It's a great viewing angle, but if I am lying in bed, I'd love it if it could snap at a 180-degree angle and stay there. You can push it past that, and it is something you can get used to, but with a bit of force it'll go back to the fixed position. If the GBA SP does the same thing, then I can totally give Anbernic a pass here. Apart from that, the Hinge is fantastic. It stays in place even if shook around a little, which is something I really disliked about the Retro Pocket Flip. My next point is that the stock OS is very basic and pretty much just does the job. There are a couple of other OS options to try, but they're incomplete, and if some serious effort was put into an OS to completely take advantage of the SP, then it would be a pretty wonderful device. Like making better sleep functionality for when closing the screen and other options. I'm too used to using Onion OS on the Miyoo Mini, so I feel like having that level of an OS on the SP would be truly great. I think the SP will be quite popular though, so I'm optimistic people will want to make this kind of effort. The last point is the buttons. Now, I think all the buttons are fine and feel good, but they are very clicky and are easily heard when casually playing. And like the Plus model, both have a little rattle when they are shook. But I think this is less of a problem with the SP. It's a little odd that the Plus is so much quieter to use, but I suppose Anbernic decided with how compact this build is that they needed buttons to be responsive, and that meant having barely any travel and a clicky response to the circuit board. So if you need a device where you need to play quietly with low volume, again the sound of these buttons could be a deal breaker. But these are potentially minuscule things, and part of why I said is so close. If you can look past these things, then it's a 10 out of 10 device that you're going to love for a very long time. If those things are preventing you from purchasing it, then it might be worth waiting to see how things pan out, or see how Miyoo's clamshell will turn out. As this device is basically identical to the Plus, I'll leave my review of that device in the description if anyone wants to look more into the OS for example, but as you can see it has a D-pad, 4 face buttons, a menu button, start and select, then going around the device we have power and reset on the right, 4 shoulder buttons in series at the top as well as the USB charging port and mini HDMI out, volume buttons on the left, and there's the dual SD card slots at the bottom with the audio out for headphones. The back has a screw that houses the battery, which is easy to access should you need to replace or access it for any reason. The device I got came with the standard 64GB SD card and was full of games already, so if you're someone who doesn't want the hassle of getting ROMs and curating a library, then this basically covers anyone that just wants to start gaming, though I did notice several Nintendo games seemed omitted on purpose. For my case, I removed some ROMs and put some of my own on the card, but I'm not overly interested in curating a perfect library unless an OS comes that I really like. There's always the second SD card slot as well to fill with ROMs whenever you need to. I'm also going to leave a link for a top 10 tips video by Joey's Retro Handhelds, which I think will help a lot of people new to a device like this. I think those tips pretty much cover any small issues someone might need with when it comes to playing their games. And with all that out of the way, I think it's time to play some games. I think we have to start with GBA, as this is what's going to be the most nostalgic for this device. I'm using RetroArch here to access my games, which is so much better than the game room option in the OS. It lets you customize things better, but if you just want to get into a game with no fuss, I guess that's why Game Room is there. What's nice with how it's set up here is that it has a bezel which shows the GBA SP logo and makes it feel a bit more authentic. I had to adjust the screen a bit and override the core setting to keep it in place, but once it was done, it looked awesome. I think a lot of people will like that look, but of course you can turn off bezels and scale the screen how you'd prefer. And I think anyone who wants to relive their GBA SP days with all the power this Android handheld has to offer will be more than happy with this device. But let's have a look at some more GBA games. Let's check out some other retro systems on here that came on the SD card before we carry on with some of the high-end systems. I decided to keep some of these systems on this card that I don't usually look into, just to add some spice in the future. There's far too much to cover here, so let's do a quick showcase of what might interest some people. There's also a bunch of ports you have access to. I got a bunch already on the SD card, but I'll leave a link to a page where you can get some other ones. It's cool to be able to play things like Cave Story and Quake on here, so let's have a look at some of these. With Nintendo 64, there is a decent amount we can play here, but it's not perfect. Even if it runs well, some games might have some graphical glitches. Nintendo 64 emulation on lower end systems is difficult to run, and for a device of this price, I'd say that what it can do is very decent. There are 2 cores to play with here in RetroArch, so a game like Diddy Kong Racing won't run unless you change to the other core. I had to slightly move the screen on this core to avoid a white line, and then it was looking quite good. You may personally want to edit the controls in RetroArch, or perhaps even on a game-by-game basis, but for the most part it was pretty fun playing most games. The R2 button by default acts as a C button modifier, and as it is held down, all the face buttons become C buttons. I found this to be quite intuitive, even in a game like Perfect Dark. And also, if you want to quickly play with the analog stick mapped to the D-pad, you can tap the power button quickly and it will toggle between the two. Let's check out some more games. PlayStation 1 is another system that just works out of the box. There's an incredible library of games for it, and I think most of them will work fine. There was a couple of instances where, for example in Metal Gear Solid, I wasn't sure if the slowdown I experienced was related to the hardware or RetroArch, or if it was just present in the original hardware. But I was able to use the fast forward key to gain speed, so I'm wondering if it's worth messing with some of the core settings here. Apart from that, it was a joy to play PS1 games on this, so let's check out some more. With Dreamcast, it looks like we can pretty much play the whole library here too. I've tested some different games and also some fighting games. I was surprised to find the D-pad works quite well for inputs, and I was able to perform special moves consistently. The clicky buttons actually kind of aid in that respect, and I was having a really good time playing them. I found personally if I mapped the L trigger to R2 so that my right index finger had access to L and R right next to each other, it made fighting games even more enjoyable. Unfortunately with Jet Set Radio, I was unable to play the game because of the analog graffiti movements that are required. Even if you toggle the analog stick to the D-pad with the power button, it doesn't matter, so this game is unplayable, and I had the same experience on the RG35XX Plus model too. The Dreamcast has an incredible library of arcade games, and to be able to flip this open and jam on some of these is a real treat. Nintendo DS works quite decently on here. There's probably some games that potentially might not run well on here, but for the most part I've had a smooth experience with what I have played. Obviously we only have one screen, but we can toggle the screens to be side by side or alternate between them both in full screen. If we tap the power button, we can switch to the stylus mode and operate the stylus with the D-pad. I found this to be quite intuitive, and I think this is a good handheld to do a good amount of DS games on. The most high-end system we'll be emulating here is the PSP. This one isn't quite as ideal because this doesn't have a wide screen, so the games will look a bit small unless you're willing to stretch the games to fit the screen. It's not going to be able to emulate everything here either. Games such as Tekken 6 do not run at full speed, and you should expect to play games that are either 2D or do not seem to be as demanding. I changed some settings in PPSSPP to see if I could get a little more performance, but we are pushing the hardware here, so we'll just have to take whatever works. I wouldn't say PSP is a good fit here, but in terms of value, there are some cool games that do run on this. But if you have a limited space on your SD card, you might want to use that space for some other systems. And that is the RG35XXSP. It's funny that this is really just the same device as the RG35XX Plus, so it's like I've reviewed the same device twice, but of the two, which would I recommend? Hands down, I'd choose the SP model. Not only is it strangely more comfortable to play, but it has easier to use shoulder buttons, and its compact size when shut is just really appealing, especially when you don't have to worry about the screen, which, by the way, the device came with a screen protector and it fits so nice that you don't even know it's there. It's easily pocketable, you can throw it in your bag without worry, and it looks awesome. I find myself just kinda looking at it before I play, as I absolutely love this transparent black look. And I wish I could have my Odin 2 or Retro Pocket 4 look like this. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications of future videos, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.